God bless the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Jake says hi.
I am thrilled to be here. What a glorious day.
Yeah.
You know, we see the wildlife, the livestock.
Yep.
Kind of reminds me of D.C. The odor's right. The only thing we're missing is jackasses. You got more than one in Richmond. I want to talk to you today about darkness and light. But first I want to tell you a story. A story about a friend of mine, a woman named Bora Van Dormen. She passed away a few years ago. But she used to be the RNC committee woman from Texas. She was a retired lieutenant colonel in the Army. And one tough lady. She told me a story how she was driving home one night. She got pulled over on the freeway. Officer walked up to the window. She rolled the window down. Before they started, she said, "Officer, I need to tell you, I've got a .45 under the driver's seat right here." And she said, "In my purse, there's a .38 revolver." And she said, "In the glove compartment, there's a Glock 9mm. And the officer looks at her and says, "Goodness gracious, what on earth are you afraid of?" She says, "Not a damn thing." Now, there are threats that are out there, but we have nothing to be afraid of. And we have not been given a spirit of fear. Do you look at what's happening in Washington? Washington has gone stark, raving nuts. You know, Washington is a city that combines Southern efficiency with Northern hospitality. And it's always been a messed up place. But now, the inmates are running the asylum. Joe Biden, when they let him out of the basement, and he teams up with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, they are losing it. They are spending money like crazy. Dear God, please, nobody tell the Democrats what comes after $1 trillion. You know, about a month ago, Congress passed out a $1.9 trillion so-called COVID relief bill. Now, only 9% of the bill was health care spending on COVID. 91% was on other stuff. We were there all night fighting against it, introducing amendment after amendment after amendment. I introduced an amendment, said, all right, you want to send $1,400 checks to everybody. I introduced an amendment to say, let's not send the checks to millions of illegal immigrants in this country. You should be here legally and a taxpayer if you're going to get a government check. We voted on it, and every single Democrat voted no. It failed by one vote. By the way, both of Virginia's senators voted no.
They don't listen.
You know, and look, okay, all right, I get it. I understand that they want to send checks to illegal immigrants. I got that. But by the way, you know, there's a new politically correct term for illegal immigrant. It's called undocumented Democrat. You know, I don't want to offend the woke police, so I'll try to use the right terminology. So I said, all right, fine. You want to send money to illegal immigrants? All right, here's another amendment. So I introduced another amendment. I said, let's not send stimulus checks to criminals currently incarcerated. If you're in jail, if you're in a 6x10 concrete box, maybe you shouldn't get a check. We voted on the Senate floor. Every single Democrat voted no. Failed by one vote. The next week I decided, all right, I get it. You guys want to send checks to criminals. You know who your base is. But let's see if there's common ground on which we can agree. How about let's narrow it? How about murderers? People convicted of homicide, currently in prison. Can't we agree that if you're a murderer in jail, we shouldn't be sending you a check? Democrats stood up and objected, no, we need to send checks to murderers. I'm like, all right, you want to send checks to murderers? How about this? Rapists. I introduced another amendment. Let's not send checks to rapists. If you've committed the horrible crime of rape, let's not send you a check. Nope, Democrats objected. I tried one last time. I said, all right, let's go for the worst of the worst. Child molesters. These people belong in the 9th circle of hell. By the way, in Texas, we have a penological approach to child molesters. It's called garden shears. And you know what? There's a 0% recidivism. So I said, can't we agree child molesters shouldn't get a $1,400 check from the U.S. taxpayer? Nope, Democrats stood up and objected. We got to send them checks too. So our government just sent $1,400 checks to millions of illegal immigrants, to murderers, rapists, and child molesters. That's today's Democratic Party. On taxes. If you're paying taxes, your taxes are going up. Income taxes are going up. Corporate taxes are going up. Small business taxes are going up. Capital gains taxes are going up. The death tax is going up. All of them. And then there is the absolute chaos at our southern border. About a month ago, I took a group of 19 senators down to the border. Representing Texas, I've spent a lot of time down at our southern border. It is worse today than I have ever seen it. We are on a path that is projected to have 2 million people coming illegally into this country this year. We went out on midnight patrol with the Border Patrol, went down to the shore of the Rio Grande. On the other side of the river, you could see cartel members with flashlights, shining the lights at us, Sheriff, yelling at us, yelling at the Border Patrol, taunting the Border Patrol, which they do every night, saying, you can't stop us. There's nothing you can do to stop us. The next day, we went to the Donna tent facility in Donna, Texas. It's this giant tent city that's been built to handle this massive surge. It's built to handle 1,000 people. With COVID restrictions, its capacity is 250. The day we were there were over 4,200 people in that facility. 1,700% its capacity. I saw the Biden cages. Cell after cell after cell, one after the other. Kids, little boys and little girls, lined up, not 6 feet apart as you would want in a pandemic, not 3 feet apart, not even 3 inches apart. Lined up side by side, lying on the floor. There are no cots, no beds, no mattresses. Side by side, touching each other, wrapped in reflective emergency blankets. The rate of COVID positivity is over 10%. Now, I'll tell you, the Biden administration, they had a policy they wouldn't allow the press in. We got cameras here. Glad to see the cameras here. They wouldn't allow cameras to come to those facilities. ABC News wanted to embed with our group of 19 senators. Fox News wanted to embed with our group of 19 senators. Here's what the Biden administration said. Sorry, risk of COVID is too high. Yeah, we got 4,200 people crammed in tiny cages. We're not worried about COVID there. But one cameraman, no. That is truly a health risk. By the way, to put it in context, Trump let the news in. Clinton let the news in. Obama let the news in. But Biden, see no evil, hear no evil, just evil. So they weren't letting reporters in, so I decided, all right, I'll do something else. And I pulled out my cell phone. Yes. And started taking pictures and started taking video. Yes. Now, the Biden administration, they sent a young woman down there who was a political handler from Washington, D.C. And her task was to stop us from taking any pictures or any video. So she's jumping in front of, she's yelling at senators, take that camera down. You can't take a picture. You can't do this. And so I just filmed it all. She jumped in front of me and yelled. She said, respect these people. I'm like, you respect these people. You locked them up in cages in the middle of a pandemic. You want to respect them, put them on a plane and fly them home. So we filmed it, we took the pictures and we put them out and ran them in the news. You know what happened 2 days later? The Biden administration said, okay, now we'll let the press in. But this is a humanitarian crisis. It is a national security crisis. It is a public health crisis. Biden is the cause of it. It is entirely man-made. It is political decisions made by Joe Biden that have made this crisis. So what did Biden do? He did what any Washington politician does. By the way, Joe Biden has been in Washington a long time. He's been in Washington since I was in short shorts. Look, Joe Biden used to have brandy with Abraham Lincoln. So Biden knows the ways of Washington, and so he promptly does what any Washington politician does, which is when there's a crisis, he blames somebody else. And he looked over and he says, I know, I'll give it to Kamala. And so he put Kamala Harris in charge of the border. And I have to say, having served with Kamala in the Senate, she responded with the kind of decisive leadership we've come to expect from Kamala Harris. She leapt on the problem and promptly went to the Canadian border. And I'm not even kidding. She flew to New Hampshire to the Canadian border because you know what? There is a massive surge of Canucks coming south. And then we're seeing an assault on our liberties, our fundamental rights, our free speech, our religious liberty, our Second Amendment. Every one of our rights is under assault as they are wanting to pack the U.S. Supreme Court, as they're wanting to fundamentally take over elections and rig elections. And by the way, when it comes to election fraud, you know, I'll tell you something. Any of y'all by any chance ever watch the HBO TV show True Blood? It's on a few years ago. It was a vampire show. It was a bunch of vampires. If you didn't watch it, your kids might. So there's a bunch of vampires, and Glenn, there's an episode where the vampires show up at a Ted Cruz fundraiser. And they kill everybody. And so I'm sitting at home. It aired Sunday nights. I didn't watch the show, but I'm sitting at home, and suddenly my cell phone blows up. All my friends are texting me going, dude, like, vampires are eating all your supporters. And so I said, all right, I'm going to have some fun with it. And so I put up a post on Facebook. And I said, listen, I'm very, very sorry to have apparently lost the vampire vote. But I'm amused and somewhat astonished that HBO seems to acknowledge that leftists are blood-sucking fiends. And a whole bunch of people commented, and my favorite comment was one guy on Facebook who he put up, he said, Ted, I'm sorry to tell you, you never had the vampire vote. Because vampires are dead, and everyone knows the dead vote Democrat. And let me tell you someone that's going to stop the dead from voting Democrat, and that's your next governor, Glenn Youngkin. I told you at the beginning I was going to talk to you about darkness and light. I've talked about a lot of the darkness in Washington, about a lot of the crazy in Washington. Let me talk about the light. The light is the men and women gathered here. The light is all across this country, people rising up and saying, this is nuts. Look, there is a natural pendulum to politics. If you look at the history of American politics over and over again, one party gets in power, they go too far one direction, the American people say, whoa, 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 slow down there, and they pull us back the other way. And that's happened over and over and over again. Right now, every time Joe and Nancy and Chuck do some dumbass stuff. That's a technical term, by the way. Part of me is grateful because it tells me we're fixing to turn things around. The last time we had a Democratic president, a Democratic House, and a Democratic Senate was 2008. Barack Obama elected president, Joe Biden vice president. Whatever happened to Joe Biden? Haven't seen or heard of him since. But you think about what happened. They came in with one-party control. They passed Obamacare. They passed Dodd-Frank. They went wild and crazy to the left. And the very next thing that happened was 2009, Virginia voted and elected a Republican governor. And this is both a privilege and a responsibility that Virginia has being an off-cycle election, is that y'all are the first to have an opportunity to speak and to say to the American people, this is crazy town. And that in turn led to, in 2010, the Republican tidal wave that retook the House of Representatives and turned this country around. All of that is happening right now. And I believe because of the craziness that they're doing, we're going to see a fantastic election year in 2021.
Yes.
We're going to see a fantastic election year in 2022 and retire Nancy Pelosi. And we're going to see a fantastic election year in 2024 and send Joe Biden back to Delaware. And I'm here with you today because Virginia has a fantastic candidate for governor. Glenn Youngkin has been a friend of mine for a long time. He and Suzanne have been friends with Heidi and me for a long time. We've stayed at their home. We've gone floating in the river on inner tubes. There may or may not have been a beverage or two involved. By the way, I said that this morning after breakfast. Some guy called out, "You didn't get out to pee, did you?" And I said, of course not. Anyone who gets off an inner tube in a river to pee is an idiot. And almost certainly a Democrat. But you know, Glenn is not a politician. He's never done this before. He spent his entire life in business as CEO of a major company. He has created jobs. He has built a company. And he looks at Virginia and he sees what Virginia can be. He sees what the economy can be. He sees what the jobs can be. He understands that people in Virginia want low taxes, low regulations, lots of small businesses, and lots of jobs. Glenn also has a backbone. Something exceptionally rare in Washington. You know, in high school biology, all of us were taught that invertebrates can't walk upright. But politicians disprove that every single day. Glenn has the guts to stand up and fight to keep our families safe, to stand up and fight to defend our constitutional rights, to defend free speech and religious liberty, and to defend the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. And let me tell you, the people of Virginia, we need a candidate who can win. And I'm here to tell you that not only can Glenn win, Glenn will win, and he's going to whip Terry McAuliffe. and send him back to New York City. We need a candidate that can bring the people of Virginia together and say there is a better way. And I'll tell you, I'm also here because I know this man. And he's got a good heart. He's doing this for the right reason. He doesn't have to do this. He had a very successful business career. He could have led a very comfortable life and not dealt with any of the nonsense that is politics. Hey, you got to have a screw loose to run. You know, I told my daughter Caroline, who's 13, I said, it's very easy to run for office. You just have to surgically disconnect your shame sensor. You have to be willing to walk up to complete strangers who you've never met and say, excuse me, sir, can I have money? Very nice to see you, man. Please give me money. I mean, that is, who in their right mind would do it? And I'm telling you, Glenn is doing it for the right reasons, because he looks at Virginia, he looks at the country, and he says, we're headed the wrong direction, and there is a better way. All right, a final point. You know, Jason, if I were to tell you 2 years ago that we would be able to run a campaign in Virginia based on the following platform. Let's allow small businesses to open their doors. Let's allow kids to go to school. Let's take the padlocks off of the front doors of churches. And by the way, let's not abolish the police department. Now, frankly, you'd have told me if 2 years ago I said those are going to be the issues in the campaign, you'd say, what idiot would take the other side of those issues? And that would be Ralph Northam and Terry McAuliffe. And Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. This is a chance to campaign on simple common sense that we're going to defend freedom, we're going to defend jobs, and we're going to defend your rights. And the reason we're going to win is the men and women right here today who are standing up and fighting to bring us back from the edge of the cliff and back to sanity. I give you the next governor of the state of Virginia and my friend, Glenn Youngkin.
Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Ted Cruz. Woo! You know, Suzanne and I have had the great privilege of being